Okay, well, let's kind of jump into your pictures and talk about them a little bit. So I'm gonna share this screen here and pull up some of your pictures. And I'm gonna go to the top actually.
So for those watching at home, I apologize. There is no behind the scenes footage for anything. I am horrible about doing it. I keep saying I need to have like some behind the scenes stuff from a shoot because it's great for marketing. And then my dancer arrives, we get excited about doing something, and then all that goes out the window. So I apologize.
Okay, so I'm pulling up these pictures here and let's see. So this one here took, let's see, it took 8th place in our studio category. And so talk a little bit about it. In fact, you kind of made a decision not to do the cross lighting that you often talk about. You have the lighting coming from one side here, but not from the other.
Yeah, so, well, this is like done in 2020. I think we shot this in 2021. I think everything I entered was shot in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I'd long since learned that there were not just one place to put the lights.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was like the first thing Rachel said to me, like when she looked at my portfolio, she was like, we're going to teach you to put lights someplace else. And so the light here is almost definitely two 1x4 strips that are stacked on top of each other. The top one is angled in a little bit, so it's sort of like here and here.
Mm-hmm.
I do that a lot for like tall forms that you want light going all the way to the bottom.
Right.
The lights are actually the angled light is a little bit upstage from him, and the straight light is a little downstage.
Okay.
Not a ton, right? Which is what gets a lot of the light to that front leg. And it's what gets the really pretty light on his face too.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times we bring the light too far forward, and then we kind of just fill in all this shadow on his face. But I think part of like what sells it, in addition to his insane musculature and back that has muscles and tendons I didn't know a human being had, is that you crop everything else out, and it's a really nice portrait, right? When we just look at his face, it's portrait light.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one thing I kind of tend to carry forward. I really like to have my dancers' faces still lit really nicely.
Right.
Or really making a conscious decision that we don't care.
Yeah.
Right. But I really like keeping it so, and finding the way to get really, really pretty portrait light on their face while still getting the kind of lighting we want for the rest of the body.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
That's very nice.
So the far wall in my studio is like a light gray. So there's a little bit of fill that's coming from the return, so it doesn't go completely dark. But this is essentially a 2-light setup, right? There's no fill coming in from the camera. It's just the 2 lights off to the side.
Mm-hmm.
And his name's Colby Foss. He's a principal with think it's principal. I always get all the titles wrong with Charlotte Ballet. And he's a friend of Amanda Tipton, who's also part of Pas de Deux. And she knew him from when he danced out in Colorado. And she says, you need to meet Colby, because like he just like floats in the air and you have all day to take the picture.
Right.
And yeah, he's a fantastic human being. We had a fantastic day just shooting. And sort of the funny story was he comes with this massive bag of clothes and all this stuff. And we shot pretty much the whole day in these shorts.
Exactly.
Right. You know, and it was just like, oh, let's do this. Like, you know, and he'd be like, do you mind if I don't change it? I'd be like, I don't care, you know. And yeah, so we have like this really great portfolio of just shots in the shorts. And then we did some stuff for Pride, and we did some stuff for Halloween near the end. But you know, there's probably about 30 pictures in the whole portfolio of just different stuff.
Right. And your images of him, this one came in at 8th place. And then we also have another shot of him here this is him again. This one came in 9th, and we also have a third image of him that came in the top 20.
No, that's not him.
Oh, that's a different person? Okay.
Black and white's a different fellow.
Okay. Let's talk about this one now.
I love this picture, not just because it's one of those like impossible shots. And no, there's no box or anything that's been photoshopped out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, aside from the typical cleanup that I do just in Photoshop for skin and stuff like that.
Sure.
There's no tricks in the shot. I'm actually pretty hardcore about that. I want all my dancers to feel like what they did was real.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't, you know, sort of hold them up and then Photoshop out somebody holding them up kind of thing.
Right.
And so, I mean, there's a famous Whiteside photo that was like his inspiration that he loved. But in that shot, he's like more turned to his side. And what we kind of noticed was like neither of us were like just totally loving the way his feet looked when he was turned to the side, right? When it was the top of his foot. And I just said to him, I said, do you think that like as you pushed up, you could just kind of roll back? And he says, I don't know. I could try. Right. And first shot was really close to this. And then we hit a couple like this where, you know, basically, you know, he's pushing a little higher than horizontal and I'm catching him on the way down.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And this was one of those, it doesn't hurt to ask. You can say, do you think you can? And he thought he could, and it turned out he could.
Exactly.
Because that foot in profile is absolutely gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
The couple shots before where his whole torso was more turned to the side,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and the passe was more of an open passe kind of thing. Neither of us were really grooving on the way the foot line looked.
Yeah.
And, you know, this was in some ways way harder to do, but it was the right shot. And had this not played out, we might not have had a keep from this because the other one just wasn't really making us swoon. So
yeah. Well, this is beautiful, and you know, and that's the thing is like I think you have to start somewhere, and then let it take you wherever it takes you to come up with that image that really works. And I think this is a good example of that.
Yeah, back when I was in management, we read a bunch of stuff by a guy named Tom DeMarco. He was like one of the gurus of the 90s on management. And, he talked about like the idea of the mythical man hour and things like that. But he wrote a book called Slack. And the premise of the book, not surprisingly, is that if you want to have innovation in your organization, he's talking about software developers, your schedule has to have margin to it. You can't have everybody just working with too little time to get the job done, right? They need to have a little bit of time where they have time to breathe and say, I wonder if I could do it this way. And if you don't have any space in your schedule, you will do it the expedient, dumb way, and never have time to explore maybe a better way.
Right.
And so my sessions also tend to run long because I always want that time to say, I'm not totally loving this leg line, or I'm not totally loving the arm line. I like the idea, but there's something not quite what I love. Okay, well, let's try to figure out how to get this from like to love.
Exactly.
And yeah, so my shoots tend to run long because we look at the pictures as we go and we say, I'm just not loving those arms. Can we like go through a Rolodex of arms and just come here and here and let's throw out 20 more arms and see if there's something that feels better.
Yeah. And,
right?
and what's so cool about this, just for example, with those arms is how it mimics, the passe that's happening with his legs, obviously.
And that was intentional. It was like, well, what should I do with my other one? I said, how about we do that? Because it will mimic the passe.
Very nice.
I think the original one, the arm went straight up and we didn't love it.
Yep.
Plus, it was really hard to get your arm to go straight up and do all that other stuff. Right? It tended to wobble.
Now, here's another image that finished in your top 20.
Yeah, so actually, when we went up for a workshop with Rachel during this mentorship, the 6 of the 7 of us were up in the New York area, and one of the fellows has a studio outside of Philly, and so we went up a day or two early just to hang out and do some shooting together. So this is a guy his name's Lloyd Petchy. He's a New York dancer. And so we we're in Harry's studio here, and we like just broke into little groups. We had a couple dancers that were with us each day, and this one I think his dance tights are like multicolored blue or something like that, which yeah, I didn't feel like gelling a whole bunch of stuff and creating a whole blue vibe, so black and white seemed like the right answer here. But yeah, he's got this insane flexibility and really wanted to do something that pushed his limits. And I mean, there's probably about 20 takes on this where he's like, I got better. Yeah, no, I can, and he loved this shot. Right? He called it a Spider-Man shot. And I don't remember exactly. I mean, clearly there's a light sitting low off the camera right. And I think there might be a second light up high that's just filling in a little bit, and it looks like we put a small kicker off the camera left. Right.
Yeah, you got one lighting up that foot back there, which is so necessary.
Yeah, in this studio, there's like no return. Right, it's like just a lot of black, and so yeah, without the kicker, his back foot would have basically disappeared at the ankle.
Yep.
And yeah, we would have been really disturbed looking at that.
So you managed to get the light to like just kiss his right cheek and lighten his eyes. How hard was that to line it up or line him up with the lights, one of the two? So you got that, because I think that's a huge part of it. He had, if that light hadn't just kissed that cheek the way that it did, his eyes would have just been lost in shadow, his right eye.
Yeah. So my approach to the light is always to move the lights and not move the dancer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And especially at his level, if he has a strike mark on the ground, he's going to be in the same space super reliably. Right. And so, there's a little bit of tweaking of the light and to decide like, the camera left side of it side isn't getting enough light. So we need to, let's try pulling it around a little bit. Or do we need a little bit of fill? It's the nice thing about when you're working with, professionals and pre-professionals a lot, where they're much more patient and much more repeatable.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's always like a good day when you have that extra margin, so to speak. You don't have to get it within 3 shots because they're going to lose interest, or this time their head's here and this time their head's here, and it's like they're innovating while you're trying to move the light to deal with their last innovation. So yeah, he had kind of laser focus, if you can't tell from his just overall expression of this was the shot he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just really a question of how low he could bring himself.
Right.
So the angle we honed in on pretty rapidly. We played with the hand positions a couple times, to get the right. One of the things we ended up really liking was that front arm going over the back arm, which was a little backwards from what I thought we would want. But the way it obscures the lower part of his face and ties in with his nose and creates that space for his head to be in. When we saw it that way, we're like, well, yeah, we're doing that.
Yep. Okay, let's move along over to your teen shots now.
Okay.
And we've got a couple of those to take a look at. Just want to see what we have here. This one here is a top 20 image. If I recall correctly, yeah, this is the one that did top 20. Can you talk a little bit about this one before we move into your other 2 images that were number 4 and number 1?
Yeah, so this young man, his name's Julian. He's 15 when we shot this. He's just recently turned 16. And for almost all my shoots, I never want to say all, just because I'm sure there's probably one that we didn't. We generally start with something like low and stretchy. Even though they've had plenty of time to warm up, my suspicion is always that the adrenaline for getting into it causes maybe a little less than perfect stretch.
Mm-hmm.
So we always start with something that's really lungy to really make sure those hamstrings and groin muscles and are really as stretched as they think they are. And 9 times out of 10, they're not. They get down into this and they're like, yeah, man, oh, hold on a second. Let me like, yeah. And it's like, yeah, that's why we do this. And so this was one where we started off with we kind of had the leg line set and started playing with some arms, and this was an idea he had coming in of the arms going in the sort of opposite directions.
Mm-hmm.
And So then the challenge became, because you can tell we are lighting from above, but there's that little kiss of light hitting into his face.
Mm-hmm.
And 99% sure what I did there is that there is a little strobe sitting on a tiny little stand with a 10-degree grid on it. Just putting a little bit of light in there, not creating it. I didn't want it to be the highlight. I just didn't want his nose and face to be totally in shadow. So that light is sitting, 2 stops down, just shining enough to kiss along that nose line so that his face has a little bit of definition.
Yeah. Sometimes we have like beginners watching this webinar who are, like learning dance the way you were 3.5 years ago, and when you see an image like this, for a beginner, you just look at it and say, wow, this looks amazing. But, for those of us who know dance really well, one of the things that, I just want to kind of point out some of the things that work so well in this image. And the first thing is the lines, of his legs. They're just, it's a perfect line there. His arms are also, like opposite of each other, but still very parallel. And the softness of his arms are, the same from one side to the other. His fingers are very soft. And then you've got, this really gorgeous forced arch, over here on this foot here. And then he's really crunching his toes and getting a really good pointed foot, over on the other one. I don't know how hard it was or how much you had to direct him on all of this, but the fact is, when you just see all of this together, it just comes across so amazing.
Well, he worked his buns off to get here. That low position, it kept getting lower as he got a little more warm and a little more warm.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it was one of those things like where I'm sure if I went back into the archive to look at the raws, his hips were probably a good 3-4 inches higher early on. And you look at it and you go like, I know where there's something really gorgeous here. Okay. And you say, do you think he can get lower? Okay. I said, yeah. And especially with his age, where, he knows where he wants to go, but still, he's still young.
Mm-hmm.
And, you do want to be careful not to make it sound like, oh, what you have right now, it's crap. It'll only be good if you can do this, right? You want to make sure that it's like, what I told him is like, I love what we've got here. I think there's something cooler if we can get down just a little bit lower and then that line goes straight. And, for him, it was like, okay, you threw down the gauntlet, I'm getting there. And like I said, he came up with it with the arm line on there. We had to tweak it a little bit. And I remember, I think the arms actually started more looking kind of barrel full of monkeys.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And said like, I think it's going to look better if you really stretch that arm and keep that upper line, as one solid. And that's where we ended up there. So yeah, I mean, he definitely worked. And what I generally find, just like with with Lloyd's picture, the black and white,
Mm-hmm.
is these really stretchy, grounded things. The dancers can really go nuts trying to get it just the way they want, right? Because they know they're in complete control here.
Yeah.
Right. Like, oh, I wish that finger was just a little bit big, a little bit higher, a little bit lower. I want to go again.
Right.
Right. They're not up in midair trying to control something. They're not on one foot off balance trying to control something.
Yeah.
And so they know they can get to their physical limit when they're doing stuff like this. And so often these are the ones that I have like the most takes from,
Yep.
right? Where they're really honing in on that's my best. And the one thing I think he, wishes that he had on this that he couldn't quite get was that toe all the way to the ground.
Was the what all? Oh, the toe. Yeah.
That toe is sitting like this much off the ground, but he was like, if I
Yeah.
get all the way down and push everything there, he just,
Yeah. I just think that with the angle of the leg, I just don't know how that would be possible though. He'd have to like
well,
lift everything up.
I will bet you if he came back today, he'd have the toe down. Because like that was like one of those things where he was like, I want that.
All right. So this is a kind of an interesting image here. This one was a top 40 image in the teen category. Can you talk a little bit about like what was the inspiration for this with her hair down or her head down? Obviously her hair flying. Talk a little bit about this one here.
So this one, we'd like to thank physics and God for the hair because that's straight out of camera. Because, and it's the only one that the hair did that in. But of all the jumps, that is the singular coolest hair that she had in all the jumps. This is Chloe, and she's currently a junior in high school.
Wow, great.
And so she kind of wanted to do, she had like an inspiration shot of this like stag jump. And then the progression was figuring out like at what angle her legs really worked. Right. I think the actual inspiration shot was like more square on with the legs really more tucked across, almost like it almost looked like a pas de chat, except that it was one leg going forward and one leg going back instead of coming in from the sides. But with her, like it wasn't really the right angle for her, right? And so God bless her. I mean, she jumped, a good 6 or 7 that we knew weren't going to be keepers, to see where we liked the leg lines.
Yeah.
And found this spot that we had to move some lights around. This thing is nutty top lit. I mean, there's just it's probably a 3x4 gridded softbox straight over top. And which is always fun to get up there on the boom because I mean it weighs like 80 pounds that you're bench pressing up to the ceiling. But the challenge always with the jumps is just like how many times. And she was already well warmed up when we hit this, and but finding those arm positions and we honed in pretty quick that we kind of liked the second arms, but more in a bird of prey rotation, which then quickly defined that we wanted the head going down, because the leg lines looked very sort of talon-like, and we both sort of felt very quickly that it had that sort of raptor sort of feel. And then, like I said, just stupid dumb luck that her hair did this.
Right, exactly. And the beauty of her head being down and in shadow is that it puts all the attention on her hair. When her hair does a little loop like that, that's really crazy cool.
Right. And so this was one, like even in the shots before, we were never sitting there saying like, oh, you don't have portrait light on your face. I need portrait light. It was like, yeah, no, this isn't that shot. Right.
Yep. Okay, now we're going to come to this one here. This is our 4th place image in the teen category. And who is the dancer here?
So this is Olivia. She's a sophomore, high
Mhm.
school. So one thing about Greensboro is the Greensboro High Point area is, or it still is, but it was like the furniture capital of the world.
Mhm.
Right? It's where Thomasville Furniture and where Rooms to Go got its start, and Ashley is still headquartered here, and there's just all these furniture companies, right? And so the International Society of Furniture Designers is also headquartered out of High Point. And annually they have a furniture design competition called Innovation in Design. And last year was the first year I had heard about it. And but 2 years ago, they started adding in a photography competition along with it. And so there's like 50 or 60 finalist pieces of furniture. And there are all sorts of stuff. Some of them are tables, and some are like just little tchotchke things, and some are, this is a lamp. And so they sent out a call for photographers. And the instructions are, interpret the furniture in an interesting way. And it's a People's Choice Award thing. There's like there's a not for nothing check at the end of the day, but I joke that like for getting 40 or 50 pictures of furniture, it's really cheap for them, because like they're paying like 10 bucks a piece.
Right.
But as soon as I saw this lamp on the catalog, I said, okay. And basically every day, some furniture would roll into the warehouse, and it'd be like, oh, lamp's not there, not going down today. Right? Just waiting for this lamp to show up. And I told the guy running, I said, the morning that lamp shows up, I will be down to the warehouse to get it, because I am shooting that lamp. And so I told Olivia about the lamp and said, hey, well, really, I talked to Olivia's parents first. And said, if I want to do this project, can you check with Olivia? And she was like, absolutely, this sounds like fun, right? So that lamp it's full size, of how big the lamp is. It's about 6 feet.
Mm-hmm.
Barely fit in my car. And so we just started playing with it. And we've got one of her up in a really nice little susu with her arms up in a little cross, sort of echoing the shape of it, giving it a little side eye that was really cute. And then we did some ones where it was like leaning at an angle, and she was like behind it or in front of it, playing with it. And then I had sort of an idea in my mind of her more performing the role of like a support for it. And he said, not to objectify you, but I kind of want you to be an object now. And I said, are you game? And she's like, yeah, let's play with this. And so we played through a bunch of different like leg lines, arm lines, and ended up here. And the lamp is actually supported on a little stack of Apple boxes to the side that had to be photoshopped out. So this is one of those cases where there is a slight bend in reality of what's real and what's not real. But I didn't want to suspend the lamp out of fear that like the suspension would not hold. And the boxes were much more stable. So the lamp is lit on its own, but there's also a pair of strip boxes running above this, behind the lamp, kind of coming in at an angle that is giving all that gorgeous light on her. The lamp itself is effectively not lighting her at all. It's just not that bright. I mean,
Right.
this is like shot at f8, you know, and so the lamp is just bright enough to meet her as the lamp. And there's probably like a little bit of light on her hands that's from the lamp, but all the light on her face and everything else is pretty much from the strip boxes, which were gelled orange to match the light that was there, so that there's nice color harmony of light that is coming from the lamp and the light from the strip boxes. Otherwise, you would have had some like weird blue orange color shifts from the two. And otherwise, you know, it's a fairly simple shot. In that, like I said, you know, the strip boxes are upstaged by a foot or so and angled back a little bit, right? So that you can kind of tell the light along the top of the lamp, where the wood is lit, and that's because of the strips. But we wanted, you know, back to premise one, we wanted her to look really good. And so consequently, and you know, get her leg muscles in particular, and just have really sweet light on her face.
And so, you know, I love the choice even of the Leo color, you know, that it's this is all like just a very muted sort of like color scheme here, you know, and you know, even the Leo works in, even her hair color works in with this, you know.
Yeah, we actually shifted the color on her Leo just a little bit because the Leo was a little closer to her skin tone.
Okay.
And when big like this, it was fine. But like when you just saw it like as a thumbnail, it really averaged out to her skin tone really quick. And so we were really concerned about like how it would look on Instagram, how it would look as a thumbnail. And you know, so we shifted the color a little bit away from the more skin toned color that it was originally.
Very cool. Let's go now to your category winner, and that is this image here. Oops. I will say that when we opened up our gallery of all the top 15 images in each category, and you know, we had the metal print of this one out, so many photographers were just standing around just analyzing this image much more so than, you know, any other image. They just really loved, you know, everything you did with this, from the lighting, from, you know, her pose and the lines that, you know, that you guys went with. This just was really the most popular image in our gallery.
You have no idea how much I appreciate that. I mean, not just from you, but from everybody. This was one of those images that the shutter clicks and it comes up on your screen and you go, we're done. And I still get like, you get the little chills in your spine, the little hair stand up on your arms, and you said, we just created something really special. And we worked this a lot, this hinge, and finding a set of arm positions that we really liked, and getting that lower arm was a lot. Right, a little lower, it doesn't track back up into the thigh line, a little higher, there was a really narrow spot where it really looked good.
Right.
Right. This young lady's name's Jillian. She graduated last year from UNC School of the Arts, and is in Delaware currently. And she, she's an amazing dancer, and and has this amazing work ethic of, she kind of knew what was possible here after the first couple shots as we started to hone in on this, and wasn't going to give up with anything short of amazing for herself.
Right.
And just getting everything, pushed down, getting the releve on the front foot, poker straight. There's plenty there where, like, okay, yeah, we got this, but then we lost the releve. Oh, we got this, and but the back foot's not as pressed. And so there was a lot of sort of design work that went into getting the structure set up. The lighting on it is, there's somebody asked me about this, and how I initially remembered it wasn't correct, and then I had to correct myself when I talked to her.
This looks like a single light source.
It is. So there's I'm trying to remember whether there's a grid on it or not, but it's a 1x4. I really love my strip boxes. Because they don't spill as much, right? And so, but it's off at, this image is flipped from the way we shot it. It was the other way around. It just reads better as a photo coming in from the left. Then if you flipped it, you would be just kind of coming into her knee as you kind of enter the picture, and it wouldn't sit as well.
Right.
But that was her stronger side. So that's why we flipped it. And yeah, her hair is that long. It's not like stretched or anything. It's just an insane amount of hair. And so the light is at, in this case, camera left, up at about 45 degrees.
Right.
And everything else is just drop off. Right. There's enough light that it's coming all the way across her stomach and then hitting the back of the legs. The light is sitting a little bit upstage from her. And there might have been a fill that was like 2 or 3 stops down. That part I don't fully remember. But just looking at a few things, I think there's just a little bit of fill in there, but it's really minimal.
Yeah. But just, you already mentioned this, but just the way you lit her lower arm, so, in her hand, so it's not lost into her thigh. I think that's part, and then you just see her whole lower body with that same, very soft lighting. This image is just something that you can just look at for a long time and just admire.
Yeah, this was one of those ones where I had a mom whose daughter's all classical all the time, and she said, when I saw this picture, I knew you were the right photographer for us.
Yeah.
Right? Which is kind of funny in a sense, because this is so not classical. Right. But she was just really taken by everything about the photo. And she said, this is somebody who I want to photograph my daughter.
Yeah.
Which, it's probably got more skin on it than most of my photos. And I was a
Mhm.
little worried about that when I put it up. I was sort of like waiting for people to say like, what the heck? And it wasn't that way. And I was like,
No, there's
I
no
was
need
like,
for it, right?
yeah. And, there's nothing wrong going on, but you just sort of always, worry like when it is that, like how people will react to it. She's
Yeah.
not wearing a tutu.
Yeah. So were you watching the competition results on Instagram Live? Is that what you were doing, or did you just find out about it later?
No, my wife and I were streaming it onto the TV.
That's awesome. Was it kind of fun to watch like the whole thing? 'Cause that took quite a while to play out.
Yeah, it was. The downside of my strategy of streaming from my phone was all the sidebar conversation that was happening with other friends, like on WhatsApp and stuff,
Uh-huh.
would keep shutting down the streaming. I was like, I can't talk, because it takes a hot second to resync. I didn't have two devices to be like live chatting with people while it was going on. So
Right. So were you expecting this to be your highest placing image? In other words, when you saw the one become in fourth place, were you saying to yourself, okay, this one's still alive, it's got a good chance?
no, actually. So funny story. I mean, this picture also went into IPC, with Professional Photographers of America,
Mm-hmm.
and it earned a merit, but it was not viewed as like, oh wow.
Right.
And so when the other one, was announced as fourth, my wife like squeals, and I like squeal a little bit too, and we're like, that's awesome, right? And it's like, okay, let's see who got 3, 2, and 1, right? And so it wasn't even remotely like, I wonder who's going to get first. And it was not like, I hope I get first. It was just like, I can't wait to see what the first place image is. And like when this popped up, it was like, it took a hot second.
Well, that's cool. Now, what was it like to experience it, like that, to learn that you were a category winner?
It made me really wish I had been there, like just because like it's a much different energy.
Mm-hmm.
The massive hug from my wife was really cool, but but the so I mean, I regret not being there for that part of it, but it was it's one of those things you still process, that there's so much talent in this group.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like you said, like when people really love the picture and are like looking at it, and for the judges and the jury to have liked it, means so much, because it's not there's nothing foregone about anything.
Right.
Where you sit there and go like, well, duh, this was the first place. Did you see the second place? It's like I would have left the competition a happy man with the fourth place shot.
Right.
Right. And felt like, I'm so glad they loved that.
Yep.
And I would have respected the heck out of the third, second, and first place shots, because I think the jury did a really great job of sorting things,
Mm-hmm.
like across the board. And had they picked something else, I think I could have easily said, that's an amazing shot. I totally get why that's the number one.
Yep.
I mean, I didn't sit there scratching my head wondering like, how's that number 2? And that other one was number 7, you know, kind of
Yeah.
thing. I think y'all probably had more devil of a time going first, second, first, you know. Because there's so much talent here.
Yeah.